Thank you everybody for joining us for this session. As Al said, we do have a bit of a slide just to introduce who we are and what we're going to be talking about. So I'm sure those of you who have stuck around for the last few episodes have seen that we have progressively gotten more innovative with the names that we use for one another. And this is no different. So I have somewhere along the line acquired Feifei, which is actually short for Fatima, believe it or not, with a whole bunch of other names. And Alistair at some point acquired Henny as well. So there's a long story around how all of us got our names, but I'm going to be tagging with Alistair tonight to explain a little bit more about, where to next. Now, this wouldn't be possible without everybody who has had a very big part to play in this and has brought all of this content to us. So to our co-conspirators, thank you very much for making the series as wonderful as it has been. I've definitely really enjoyed spending a lot of time learning from each of you and learning how different animations kind of feature in our different presentations. But for today's session, I really do just want to talk about Copilot and where to from here. What tips and tricks can we have for rolling out Copilot across the organization? So the agenda for today is pretty open-ended. It's stuff that will work, and it's stuff that we should probably take notes about to explain to you why it doesn't work that way either. So I think the biggest tip and trick that I can give you is, if you haven't seen all of our episodes up until now, I would definitely suggest that you do go look at them, because what we are going to be discussing today really does bring all of that together. So in our first session, Jason took us through the 3 different strategies that you need for AI to work. He did very much go on about how data and AI needs to be used responsibly, and how you can use things like the success kit to actually measure where you're going, and how Copilot can be rolled out successfully in your organization. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is actually featured in the success kit. So Jason, I don't know if you maybe want to chuck the success kit link into the chat as well, please, if you wouldn't mind, just so everybody has the link. Then in the second session, we had Tracy talking about the AI Council. And I think for quite a few people, this really did hit home. The AI Council really did have a lot of thought-provoking content that I know from our perspective, from a Belgium campus perspective, we actually used to form a digital council. So Trace, that information has definitely become very useful, and I know that it's being used quite widely in quite a few different organizations on how to do this kind of thing and how to take it forward and how to build strategy in a business. Then Karika took us through how you create a plan for Copilot deployments, and this was quite interesting because when you start to look at the different kinds of Copilots that there are, understanding which one you want to use and how to deploy it is really important, and being able to create a plan or use the plan functionality within the Power Platform and within the Copilot ecosystem to do exactly that was really beneficial as well. So definitely something that you can use to see how you can roll this out a lot quicker, especially if you have multiple tenants in the same organization. I know there's quite a few organizations that still work like that. Then Al took us through how you prepare the tenants, and this is really where we started to look at what are some of the governance perspectives and items that we need to consider in the bigger and greater Microsoft landscape. So looking at things like sensitivity labels, understanding how you actually categorize your data, where it lives, how do you access it, those kinds of things. I followed up with the session after that where we spoke a little bit about SharePoint and how you can actually deep dive into information architecture to better prepare your agents, especially if you're looking at an agent created in Copilot Studio. How do you make sure that your data is accessible in the right ways to the right people and is being used correctly through the different agents that you could deploy? Then Warren really blew my mind with the next session where he spoke about the different kinds of agents that you get within teams and how you can actually utilize these properly. And I think this was probably one of the most exciting sessions for me because I felt like a kid in a candy store. And if you haven't seen that session yet, I definitely think you should go check it out, because to see the functionality and the different kinds of Copilots you can get literally just inside of Teams while you're busy running a meeting is really insane. And that really does start to lean towards how the communication plan is formed, which Jason covered a little bit later on. But between those 2 sessions, Karika also spoke to us a little bit about Power Platform and how you can actually use Power Platform and Azure to scale up the capability within your agents landscape. And if you wanted to start looking at agentic automation and agentic AI, how do you surface a lot of that functionality through Copilot? Then Jason went through the communication plan. He spoke to us about, I think, one of the key standout items in that session, which I think definitely needs to be repeated is definitely where to find new updates that come in from Copilot and right through the Microsoft landscape through Message Center. There's a lot of cool stuff that Jason covered in that session around how communication and Copilot work hand in hand as well. And I think this will touch a little bit more on the use cases that Alistair doesn't know he's presenting yet later. Then in the last section that we had, Al spoke a little bit about how you can actually roll out Copilot chats, and he showed us how, he could use prompts to literally create presentations on the fly. And it was really cool because we could see that Copilot could get it wrong from time to time, more often than not in some situations, and how that very much depends on the prompt. So I think a lot of the lessons learned and a lot of the information shared throughout these sessions are really going to be what I try to bring together in some of the tips and tricks that I give you today. I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time on the tips and tricks because I'm hoping that we can spend a little bit more time on the use cases and how you can actually go forth and practically implement this. So speaking about that, when we look at the summary of the tips and tricks that we really do want to look at applying, I think it really does come down to a few very core and key elements. So the first thing that we really do want to do is make sure that we're using the correct prompts. When we create these Copilot agents, if it's in Studio or if we're trying to create our own customized agents, we really do want to try guide the user as well as the agents into making sure that this landscape that we have is very much fruitful and is accurate and is generating the correct content. So being able to kind of guide the agent with the prompts that should be expected, being able to create those little starter prompts if you're using something like Copilot Studio is very useful, but also trying to train the users on what information they can be expecting out of these agents is going to be something that drives success. And that'll be paired quite nicely with the training and the adoption. So as we've seen with multiple different solutions and platforms, and I think Trace can attest to this quite a lot, the best way or the most successful way to implement a solution is to get your users on board. So adoption very much is key, and adoption happens through actually taking people through the process, training them correctly, setting up your content correctly so that they feel that they are very well equipped to actually be able to use this kind of system. And I don't think rolling out Copilot is going to be very different in that perspective. Helping users understand what Copilots or what agents they have at their disposal in the different platforms, how they can access them, what they need to be used for, that kind of training is going to become very important and actually quite essential to the successful rollout of Copilot in your organization. A use case gallery, that kind of goes hand in hand with number 5, which is knowing your Copilots. Something that I think we are going to see a lot more of, and Jace, you can probably give a little bit more insight here, but I think what we're already seeing is there's a lot of duplication in agents that are being created. So, there isn't really a central place in many organizations where people can go find agents. I mean, we've got things like the marketplace where you can actually go search for the agents, but not a lot of people actually publish their agents. So I think it would be good as a practice in an organization to actually start creating some form of gallery where, it's very much put forward what different kinds of agents are available, what they are used for, in what context they are used for, and potentially see if there's some room for collaboration to see if there's greater context that can be added to enrich the agents that are being used. Then Strat, being able to put together a general strategy around how AI should be used in general, as well as how that actually implements or affects Copilot, I think is going to be quite important. And this is very much where we're going to lean off of what Trey shared in the AI Council session, looking at how you actually govern the different parts of your landscape. This is now obviously depending on whether you're using the Microsoft 365 Copilot or whether you're using Copilot Studio. There will be different things that you set up in different places, but it would be good to understand what the overall approach should be so that you can apply that in whatever part of the platform you're busy with. If you are using something like Azure AI Foundry, obviously there's different rules and constraints you need to apply there as well. So you want to be able to base that off of something, and I think being able to put together something solid like a strategy would really be able to go the mile there. Then knowing the Copilots, I think this is something we've seen a lot, and I think this is probably, hopefully, being what has brought a lot of value out of this season, is actually being able to demystify what the different kinds of Copilots are that exist within this landscape. So I know Karika loves making the jokes, so I'm going to make it in her absence, but one of the things that Karika loves saying is, when somebody asks her if she's used Copilot, she literally just starts giggling because she really just wants to know which one. There are really so many different Copilots. It's you really do need to clarify which one you're using in different contexts, because you can actually end up recreating or reinventing the wheel just by creating an agent in a different workspace. So for instance, something that we see a lot or something that I've seen a lot, is people go into Studio, go create an agent, and then have to create a whole new license or have a whole new license associated to that for something that they could actually have just done natively inside of Copilot chat. So this is something we're starting to see a lot more. And I think this is also just because there's so much Copilot spread all over the place. I think that really is going to be where we start to see a lot of overlap in the different organizations as well. Then the next two, I think, are probably something we've covered quite extensively in the series as well, but also something very much worth referencing again, is actually understanding the data. So I think one of the big talking points throughout the rise of AI in the last, let's say, 2 years has been that AI is only going to be as good as the data that we get. And something we're starting to see a lot more of is that a lot of the content that we have now is AI generated. And that's also being fed back into the knowledge base. So if the content that is being generated by AI isn't of good quality, it's going to end up creating a bit of a spiral in your ecosystem. So making sure that you have the correct data available in the correct format, making sure you've got the correct sensitivity labels applied, it's tagged correctly, it's categorized correctly, your information architecture is relatively solid. That is going to be what is going to drive a lot of the success in your adoption and your rollout of Copilot. Then managing DLPs, data loss prevention policies. This is something I'm speaking specifically towards Copilot Studio for. Something that we've seen in larger organizations with quite a lot of citizen development happening is that people are connecting up their own personal accounts to the work tenant. A lot of this can be prohibited through the use of DLP policies. So being able to actually block off different technology stacks that aren't necessarily being used within the organization. This would also feed into the strategy and would be a really good way to protect the organization from unnecessary data leaks or from having users have access to data that isn't necessarily supposed to be freely available or publicly available. So definitely things to consider. Jace, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add into this list, but those are the 7 callouts I have from my side.
You want to go first, Al?
Yes, go first.
Okay. I think that to me the standout ones are like 2 and 3, right? Giving people kind of an experience with AI, like, so you got to start somewhere, letting people try it or take them through a training, or even like kind of forcing somebody to run a prompt and see what the output is. I think those are like some key things that initially overcomes that resistance to the technology. And then I love the fact that you put in here, manage the data in the use case gallery. To me, those two are like, even like the colors that you've used point all 3 of those together. So you need the data, you need the prompt, and you need the use case gallery, and then later on the agent, right? So to me, I think those are really good call outs. And I'm just amazed that we've got to the 10th session, and everybody that's on the call has definitely benefited. Like some of the use cases that were like the data and AI team's bread and butter, like meeting minutes as an example, like Copilot and Teams Premium have just, like, that's now the meeting minutes platform, right? Depending on how you look at it and what your specific requirements are. There's a lot of use cases that the data and AI teams no longer need to do. It's just part of the core product. So yeah, spot on with everything you've covered here.
Thanks, Jace.
Do we call it AI slop, right? That's pretty much where we are, right? AI slop. And what we've seen, and I spoke to a customer today, 2 customers today, talking about AI. And I said to them, please, for the love of all things good in humankind today, can you at least just go through the program? Right? Please do this. Because everyone goes, Copilot, everyone wants AI, sure, switch the damn thing on. As in, here's a Copilot license. And then people get lost in the abyss, right? It's like, Oh no, well, here's a few things that we don't do. Okay, everyone, 100 people get Copilot licenses. Literally. Yeah, hand out to all the C-suite. C-suite goes, I'm going to Google this, or I'm going to GPT this. What does create an agent mean? And 3 months down the line, you've got 400 agents living in your environment, and you have no idea. You give the identity and access management people heart attacks because every agent creates a damn app registration, and all of a sudden they flag shit and nothing works, right? So please, can you please tell people to go through this program? Start at the beginning. They don't have to watch all the videos, right? They don't have to watch my videos. At least start with Jason and then look at the AI Council and then go through the rest. It's vitally important. If you are talking about the success of AI adoption inside of your organization, Microsoft is going to win the war. They're going to win the war. I mean, you can walk every other GPT through the room. ChatGPT, Perplexity. I'm a Perplexity user. The fact that Copilot lives inside the applications that you work in, the chat one. If you want to know more about chat, watch my video that's being uploaded as we speak, session 9, and I explain to you the differences between that shameless plug. But understand that with great power comes great responsibility. And if you just switch shit on, at least now, let me qualify this, at least now Microsoft has actually learned. They've learned, and any frontier feature that gets deployed, that gets switched on, your tenant needs to be deployed through the agent center. Thank whoever God you thank in this regard, that these AI features, these frontier features need to be rolled out. And there's a whole thing about rolling out agents inside of your organization, especially the frontier ones. So like the app builder one, which is scary, and then also the new workflow agent that's now dropped in everyone's tenant. You literally have to find that in the admin center, select it, click the deploy button, and then you've got parameters to say who you're going to deploy it on. But you need a Copilot, which includes agents, strategy when you switch the damn thing on inside of your organization. Otherwise, you're going to get slop. That's the only thing I can say about these tips and tricks when you start looking at it, outside of doing everything that is on this really pretty screen. Back to you, Jax.
Thank you, Al. I think it might actually be good for us to maybe show what we have on the agent center. I don't have it prepped in the slides, but I think it would be good to maybe go through that again and maybe just chat about how you actually go about setting some of that stuff up, because I think that's probably going to be where the wheels come off a little bit.
I can do that. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, let's maybe do that now, and then I can go back to the slides. If I'm not putting you too much on the spot. Haha.
Let's see. Where am I? I need to share a thing, right? Okay, let's just go.
Would be preferable. You could try and talk people through it, and they can use their imagination, but I don't know how that's going to.
It's not going to work. Yeah, hold on. I was busy uploading the YouTubes. Both things have been uploaded while we were on this call before I get into more trouble. Okay. Let me know when you can see my screen.
It's up.
All right. So this is the admin center. If you don't have access to it, you're going to need to go speak to your people that have access to the M365 admin center. A little tab called Copilot here, and most of the settings for Copilot lives here. And I say most, right? The one we are interested in is agents. And if I had to search for, or did I switch on the workflow agent? Yeah. There it is. If it's not deployed, it's going to say not deployed. If you click on it, you can either remove or block it. But if I click on it, that tab that says remove over there would say deploy. When you select it, you hit the deploy tab, you actually get to decide where these things actually live inside of your organization. For me, this is a dev tenant, so everyone gets access to it, but you can also shape it. So you wouldn't give everyone access to the workflow agent or the app builder agent. You'll actually decide as part of your AI council, and also, when you're creating a plan for Copilot deployment, you would decide who gets what, right? So it's quite neat. From a details perspective, there's not much in here, and I don't think there's much in the security compliance attestation, because it's funny they still reference the Service Trust portal, which was before Purview, before the Compliance Center, before the Security and Compliance Center. The Service Trust portal was the one that was really out there that ushered in a new era of compliance for Microsoft 365. So this is literally where all your agents live. The ones that you build, the ones that you don't build, and the ones that Microsoft build. Like, I can search for, is a test. Was it test? Publisher was test. Did they remove that? Custom. Okay, that's the one I built. Right, so I've got an agent running here, and to change the publisher name, it's also no small feat, but because I've deployed it as a Teams app, I was able to do that. Otherwise, you have to do a whole bunch of Dataverse stuff. Speaking of Dataverse, there's also settings, and I'm just hijacking this.
Go for it.
It doesn't stop here. But in season 2 of Copilot Zero to Hero, we'll be doing deep dives into all of these things, because when you go in here and this stupid little icon, oh, it's there. If you go into the Power Platform Admin Center, more sign in. And once everything's switched on, you'll be able to go in here and look at settings. And then there's Copilot Studio stuff that you'd want to look at, using Copilot in Power Automate, Power Pages, which we don't care about. But when we look at Copilot Studio, if you are buying a capacity license or a message license, it's going to show up here. So certain things you need to look at. Right? I don't think there's any settings. This will take me. Oh, that's new. Oh, hello. Oh, this is new. In very much the same way that you have environments inside of Power Platform, and specifically when you start looking at the App Builder agent and where that all works, you can start creating additional environments, especially with App Builder, because what happens with App Builder is when you create an app, it actually deploys to an environment inside of Power Platform, the Dataverse stuff. Which I think we looked at last week or 2 weeks ago. Knowledge sources, so there's a whole bunch of articles there that will also talk you through that. But just make sure that when it comes to agent config and a whole bunch of settings and billing and usage, you actually understand what these tabs do. What is this?
This looks new as well. I wonder if this is being announced now at Ignite.
It was,
So I haven't
was.
seen this.
Also, this is a dev tenant, as in I'm on an earlier ring than most people. So there might be things that are here that's not necessarily in your environment. Okay, Cloud PC. This is that computer use stuff. I haven't looked at I think the book of news is out for Ignite now. We were under NDA. But there is a book of news that you can download. And if you want to know what's in it, AI, Copilot, and agents. And I think there might be 1 or 2 Windows things. And also, it's Foundry is now Foundry, right? There is no other name for it. I think they also fixed that. Anyhow, we'll come back to my screen. I'm going to give the controls back to Jax.
Thank you. I'm guessing they still haven't fixed File Explorer.
That is a 3-year journey with me, Windows 11 people, and the File Explorer API and OneDrive people.
Okay, it's going to be great. All right, so let's jump back into it. I think one other thing that we just need to be cognizant of, I think one of the things that are going to be really important for organizations who are probably still going through the feasibility analysis and the feasibility study stage of whether or not Copilot will work for you. There are going to be things that are going to be deployed in the different environments, as Al showed now, that are going to put you a little bit on the back foot. So one of the slides that we managed to pull from the Windows deck or the Microsoft deck, not necessarily the Windows deck, I think the team would kill me if they heard me saying that, but from the Microsoft deck is that there are 4 different stages that you can look at going through when you feel the time is right. So what you're going to want to do is start off in the beginning. The first thing that you're going to want to look at is the generative AI features that are included inside of Microsoft already, and this is where Copilot Chat is quite useful. Some of the web-grounded agents and those kinds of things that have also been deployed across the different products have also been quite useful. Then the next stage of this ecosystem, if we can put it that way, is actually moving over to the purchasing stage or the buying stage, where you actually unlock more of the out-of-the-box features, where you start to actually consume more licenses related to some of the more AI heavy packages. So sure, we still got the Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's some additional licenses we can purchase there. But then things like the security Copilot, the Dynamics 365 Copilots that we're looking at, so things specifically like Copilot for sales, a lot of the Copilots that have been embedded inside of the different modules that make up Dynamics. Those are some of the things that really do lend themselves quite well to the environment, provided you use those tools as well. So you're not necessarily going to go utilize or buy licenses for Copilot sales if you're not necessarily using the sales package or the sales module within Dynamics. Then what you're going to do is, once you've now gotten kind of familiar with all of that, you'll look at how you can extend the platform a lot further. And this is now where you start to look at creating or using solutions that are more tailored to your data, the systems that you use, the different products that you use a lot more extensively, creating your own low-code and no-code agents, and then starting to add some of those purchased packages on top of that. So this is where we start to look at things like the SharePoint agents, the role-based AI agents, Agent Builder, Copilot Studio, creating your own agents inside of Copilot, which you can then make a little bit more agentic through the rest of the Power Platform and Azure offering, like Kirkus showed us 2 sessions ago. I think it was 2 or 3 sessions ago. And then the last one is actually building a lot more intuitive and AI-driven applications. So this is now where we start to look more at the Azure AI Foundry. They say Copilot Studio, but there's also a bit of a limitation there, because unless you're pulling in things like Azure Functions and Logic Apps and those kinds of things, you're still going to be relying quite heavily on Azure AI Foundry to drive this a lot further. But essentially what I'm trying to drive forward with this message is you can start off small and start to expand into the platform as you become more comfortable and as your strategy evolves. It's not necessarily that you have to jump in immediately and start, creating your own coded solutions in Azure AI Foundry, because all you're going to do is rack up costs. And it's not necessarily going to be something that will be financially feasible or have a lot of return on investments immediately. So if you're starting out new, go through the process, trust the process, learn the environment, and then go from there. Al, Jace, Trace, do you want to add anything else before we jump into use cases?
Yeah, I suppose from my side, the order of things: start, buy, extend, build. If you're starting the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat ecosystem, I think the extend and buy, they're saying you need to, also the naming conventions: Microsoft 365 Copilot chat versus Microsoft 365 Copilot. It is Copilot chat and Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you get the Copilot chat experience like we explained last week, difference between premium features and, 2 weeks ago, premium features. So the order of this is a little bit stagnant. Security Copilot, good Lord, please don't spend the money. When you switch on that M365 Copilot, understand that there are other Copilots, and it's a good point that Jackie made earlier on, in understanding what Copilots you get. And also, don't be confused between Copilots and agents. They're kind of the same thing. Microsoft just sucks at naming conventions, because the Copilot for Word is literally a word agent. It's an agent, same thing, contextualized, like analyst, researcher, app builder. They do specific things. There's quite a few types of agents that show up, not to be confused with when they generalize and call it SharePoint agent. Every SharePoint site gets an agent that you can do stuff with, right? Literally, right-hand side pops out, and if you've got a M365 Copilot license, you get access to that. There's also stuff like the knowledge agent that, if enabled, will also show up, and you, as an end user who's got an M365 Copilot license, can do shit with it. So it's literally everywhere. I dig the knowledge agent. Super powerful stuff. Super powerful stuff. Also, some announcements around Copilot adhering to metadata, which is a long wait. We're hoping that when they say it's going to adhere to metadata, so content types in SharePoint, it will actually do stuff with that. We're not sure what that looks like, but we're hoping that it's cool. But understand the extensibility really sits inside a Copilot Studio. The agent builder experience that you get inside of the Copilot chat experience, or the M365 Copilot chat experience, where it says create an agent. Please, like we talked about Teams sprawl, SharePoint sprawl, and every other sprawl, when everyone gets the opportunity to create stuff, switch the damn thing off. And then from a build perspective, is it Azure AI Foundry, or is it Azure Foundry, or is it, what's the new name, Jason? Are we sure we know what the name is?
I honestly don't know. I think it's Azure AI Foundry.
We just need to check that. But extensibility, when we talk about no code, low code, and pro code, I understand we've got a slide somewhere that we did for the Copilot Dev Bootcamp, where we actually talked about the different modalities of AI inside of your organization. Yeah, that's about it from my side.
Lekker, thanks, Al. Jace, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, look, I think we've got customers starting at every pillar, right? Some customers have started in the build, like the more mature customers that have a data strategy, that understand where AI fits in on the top of the data, and they've already got some experience with AI projects. We're seeing customers start on the build side, whether it's in Studio or maybe they've got a development team and they're kind of diving straight into the Azure AI Foundry side. So I think that's important to note. And then if I switch to the other end of the spectrum, like I've seen a lot of people just create a very simple prompt or a very simple agent that essentially helps them achieve something quicker. And so it's kind of difficult because you've got people that just want to explore what this tool can do. And so I think we're going to go back to the realm of where we actually have almost lots of pre-baked demos that people can kind of click through and experience each one of these features to know which one they want, because it's kind of hard to say you need Copilot chat over a SharePoint agent. They're very similar to Agent Builder as well in this retrieval agent. So there's actually only two types of agents. There's a declarative agent, which means that it follows a step-by-step sort of process. And then you've got a custom engine agent, which uses different models and calls different types of networks. So I think all of these agents listed here fall into one of those two realms, and really you can get value at each one of these pillars depending on where your use case fits. I think it's all about prioritizing the right technology. There's still other AI use cases that will be called Copilot that sits in an RPA world or a Power BI world or a SharePoint metadata world. There's still basic functionality that I think we need to roll out before we get to building an agent.
100%.
And that's something that I've learned over the last couple of months is, you really can start with an agent, but then it's really hard to get it to work if the data is not right.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you're making as well, Jace, because we see this on the UiPath side as well. So, I mean, agentic is now the buzzword. So everybody's seeing, this new era that we're going into and kind of thinking that's where we need to go. But a lot of people and a lot of organizations haven't even gotten to grips yet with how process automation is supposed to work in their organization, what the importance is of good data strategies and having clean data to drive your business. I mean, we've still got a lot of businesses actually operating off of Excel. So I think what Jason has said is definitely very valuable in the sense that there are still very foundational and rudimentary concepts that need to be kind of bedded down in an organization for something like AI strategy of any sort to actually work and flourish and be successful. One of the things that I think has been traditionally true about any form of AI is that it's actually quite difficult to show what the return on investment is in any way, shape, or form. But when you start to put that together with things like automation or with integration, you can actually see what value is being derived. You can start to add value to what is actually being generated and what is being executed. So I guess the tangent of knowing that not everything you're going to do in the organization is going to be agentic is also something that is very important. Sometimes you are just going to have a basic workflow and it doesn't need to be kicked off by an agent. It doesn't warrant the license you're going to be paying for it or the consumption that you're going to be paying for it. There are things that you're going to be able to do quite basically that you don't need to overcomplicate. And Jace, I guess that's probably something we're seeing a lot of at the moment, right? A lot of people trying to overcomplicate the simple things.
Yeah, Michael O'Donovan always says this, and he always says people try to build an agent that's like a rocket ship,
Mm.
you know, where it just needs to do one thing really well, and then you can build that little agent, you know, as the first task, and then build another agent that does another task and connect them, you know. So I think even if the UI is like click this agent for task 1 and click this agent for task 2, it's not a huge inconvenience for the user. At a starting point, right? Like for a proof of concept level, not something that's production ready, but there's a lot of basic fundamentals that just a prompt does and an agent does, and then there's also still a realm for having data strategy. I think data strategy is the biggest thing, and what's also not covered on the slide is like the types of AI, right? Do you want something that mimics a human's visual, audio, or kind of hearing, like those we used to call it the cognitive services, if I remember correctly. So what do you want AI to do? Do you want it to do an algorithm? Do you want it to process the language? Do you want it to see something? Like, I'm going to post a kind of a picture in the chat about what this looks like, but like I think giving people this understanding of like what is the type of AI that you're looking for before diving into generative AI.
Yeah, that's actually quite important. That'd be great if you could drop it into the chat, please, Jason. Sweet. Okay, so with that, I think on the trajectory of rocket ships, I think maybe let's jump into some of the use cases. This is from quite a few different perspectives, and I think we can probably jump around a little bit here. But what I've done from the slide deck that I'm going to share the URL, I'll introduce us to this earlier today, which I think has become incredibly cool, because if there are specific use cases that you're looking for or want to use, that is a really good place to go as a starting repository. Or I think if you want to start off your use case gallery, that is a really good place to go and to do so, because there's some really cool slides that get generated that you can pick based on industry. So go take a look at that. I haven't covered all of them in this deck. I think it was close to 100 slides right out. It was quite a big deck. So I've just taken out some of the call out pieces, but it really does go into a lot more detail about what you can actually do with Copilot, and you know what different kinds of Copilot you can actually use in this ecosystem. So I kind of looked at this in different spheres or different levels, and I think the first one is actually looking at this from a day in the life of an executive. So understanding that if you're on the go the whole time, you're most likely going to have teams with you the whole time. You're going to be having some 365 Copilots. And these are some of the Copilots that you're going to be utilizing the most. And this kind of jumps back to an earlier slide that I had that I kind of skipped over, was if you're going to start, there's some really basic tasks that help you with your productivity. So there are things that we've learned throughout the series where you can look at recapping a meeting, you can look at summarizing an email thread, you can draft or summarize a document or an email, you can get some specific information based on whatever context you're looking for. In this case, you might be looking for a topic or project. Something we're still seeing a lot more of, something I have a lot in my life at the moment, is translating messages. I do just want to say that the language barrier is quite rough, and sometimes propaganda is marketing and marketing is propaganda, but we move. It's great because this kind of helps bridge that gap a little bit if you're not on a VPN that actually allows this. Also added on to the side of that. But there's a lot of things that you can do to actually enhance your productivity, and this is kind of something we're seeing in the executive level, where a lot of C-suites have been given the license to do exactly this, and this kind of leans into what Al was saying earlier, where this isn't necessarily being used as widely as it can be. But then there are a lot more specific use cases as well. So if we look at things like the use cases for sales, again, I spoke a little bit earlier about one of the first Copilots that were released were actually the Copilots in Dynamics, where they had specific Copilots attached to specific modules. Sales was one of them. There are a few others that have also been released. So Copilot for Sales out of the Microsoft 365 stack, using the normal Copilot, and being able to focus this on specific tasks that you want to do. So being able to look at opportunities that you might want to pursue, looking at closure rates, deal sizes, those kinds of things. And I think this is also going to be where I think if we're going to be building custom agents, the ability to actually understand and use metadata better is definitely something that helps here, because what I've seen quite a few organizations do, if they're not using something like dynamic sales, is they're actually building some of these trackers into SharePoint. So being able to pull that data out and actually have it integrated into your different agents is going to be quite cool. Or in this case, your Copilot. Al, I don't know if you maybe want to jump in here and take on some more information around what this looks like.
Yes, the title of the topic today is tips and tricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at what Jax has taken us through, whirlwind tour of everything that you've seen in the past 9 sessions, great recap, wow. And when we start looking at where we're at in the presentation, there's an entire deck, like Jack says. Head over to copilotscenarios.microsoft.com, whatever it's called, and you can download the individual ones, or you can literally say download all, and it'll build a slide deck with all of these things in, or you can download the individual ones. But, understanding the use cases, and then from a tips and tricks perspective, I mean, I can only show you my experience over the last couple of weeks working with Microsoft 365 Copilot, and things that blew me away, right? Now, they talk about Copilot is only as good, and we're talking about Copilot chat, right? We're not talking about building agents, because you can build a lot of intelligence in agents where a user can use 4 words and it's going to spit out amazingness, right? But it is vitally important that you understand that it's only as good as the prompt that you throw at it. Now, there's a prompt coach, which I'm sure we've spoken about. It will teach you, there's 4 specific topics that teaches you about being able to write good prompts, right? Gold, context, a few other things. And last week, I work with customers that want to migrate to Microsoft 365 from legacy ECM platforms, right? And I will typically get a report out of the legacy ECM platform that's either in a flat file, or it's got 100,000 records in a spreadsheet, right? A CSV that I then need to transpose into something meaningful for me to use with my PowerShell scripts when it comes to orchestration and automation, right? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I was suitably impressed. What VM am I in? Wrong one. And this blew my hair back, right? Because, here we go, connecting. It's waiting for it to log in, and then I'll share my screen. So what I had was, and I'll show you what the original data looked like. I've got a can I actually show you the script? Yeah, I can show you the script as well. So we help customers, we build information architecture, right? And I didn't want to normally, close that one. Is this my bad boy? Yes, it's my bad boy. Is it? Oh, it's on the other machine, which is perfectly fine. So what I have is, I've got a script that reads a CSV, and I need to create, let me see if I can find it. I want that. Okay. Let's move things around. Site agent script. Is it going to be here? It's that one. Okay. Then open up Copilot. Okay, I'm ready to share my screen. Oh. Go to conversations. So I wrote this prompt in Notepad and I gave it a description. I said, so I have two sheets, sheet 1 and sheet 2, right? And this I actually wrote in Copilot chat. There we go. All right. So I'm sitting in this window. It's a very small window to type in, right? So I wrote it in Notepad. But essentially it says I have sheet 1 with 4,800 rows, and I've got sheet 2, which is the format that I need for my CSV. Yeah. So this is the format: site name, site type, is it a hub site, parent hub site, libraries that I wanted to create, split by a semicolon, content type I'm not using in this specific script, and then folders inside of those libraries. Right? Now remember, this is the dump that I have. I've got level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and probably level 4, right? So now I've got 4,837 records or rows in the spreadsheet that I want to do something with. So I spent some time writing this prompt. It describes everything that I want. I've got sheet 1 and sheet 2. Sheet 1 has 4 columns. Sheet 2 has however many columns. I've given it an example. Well, the way it was pasted in, it just pasted it as top heavy, right? No carriage returns. Sheet 2 has 7 columns, and then I say we are not using content type for now. I want you to map, blah, 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 do some more mapping, do more mapping, and then I want all rows, and there's parent-child relationships and all of that. And then it read this back to me, right? Which blew my head, right? So level 1, sheet 1 to sheet 2, copy all unique values, site column, boom. Set that. Set it to your communication type. Leave parent hub site library content types and folders empty because it doesn't exist. Level 2, and it went and it read this thing. It understood my madness. Right? It literally understood my madness. Then it said, value, gather all related level 3 values, children of level 2, and join them with a semicolon separator. Place this concatenated string in the library column. And it kept on doing that. And then it says it's going to pass this shit. Next steps, it says, yeah, show me what this looks like. Then it generates this, right, as a representative sample of what this data is going to look like, right? Then it was very polite and it said, hey, okay, explanation of what they need to see here. Would I like a more extensive? No, I said, smash it, boys, smash it, right? And then it allowed me to download the spreadsheet, which turned into this. Not that one. This one. So it's taken that 4,887 things and it's distilled it down into 265 sites. Right?
That's insane.
And it's down and it says, okay, I need to pair it up. So here's all my primary hub sites. They're communication sites. It's a hub site. Yes. Then I said, okay, well, all the other sites are team sites and they need to be associated with the corresponding hub site, like financial management. There's financial management, right? Then I just blew my hair back, right? It did the concatenation for the different libraries. So I want X amount of libraries. And then in those libraries, come on, it goes and it creates folders. It's created this thing for me, right? It's created this. So every single time I work with this stuff, I take that, I literally take that, that prompt that I wrote, right? Where's the damn thing? This prompt, I mean, I could build an agent to do this if I really wanted to. But I can use this prompt every single time in, and I do this shit for a living, man. I help customers move off legacy platforms into Microsoft 365. I have now got a spreadsheet that will spin up 265 SharePoint sites. It will do, well, it could be a team, Tracy, just in case you talk to me about creating teams. Yeah, before I get into trouble. But I could use the same analogy there. Instead of creating SharePoint sites, I want to create teams with channels. Right? I said channels, not private channels, Tracy, before I get into more trouble. Yeah, there we go. If you can't beat them, join them. You just succumb to what people tell you should be doing. But for me, in my personal day job, this is an example of, I wouldn't say advanced Copilot skills, because I'm by no way advanced in doing this. But I had to sit down and figure out what I wanted this damn thing to do, make it make sense to me, and then hope that it makes sense to Copilot. And I promise you, this has done so many things for me, right? Because I can do this. I can now take any export from any legacy ECM platform, be it OpenText Content Server, doesn't matter. Hummingbird, FileNet, Documentum, it doesn't matter. I can pull it through this because they're going to give me a CSV dump or a flat file dump, and I can do this. Mad science, mad science. I'm going to stop sharing. And that's my from a tips and tricks perspective. Under Dan, understand the scenario. In this case, I understood the scenario. What is it that I wanted to do? I wanted to merge two completely different data sets, right? What was the value? Does it reduce my time to value? Absolutely, it reduces my time to value. I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours trying to copy paste stuff out of spreadsheets, right? Because I've got a customer right now that's given me a spreadsheet with 100,000 records in it. Now, I looked at that and I was like, 4,800, shit, man, I'm going to be here for the next 3 years. Why is Tracy chatting while I'm talking?
And that would have been what, like 3-4 weeks worth of work, right, Al? You would have sent it back to the customer and they would have filled it out. And
yeah, I can now produce Excel-based information architecture straight off the bat, just from tooling in the right way. Would the UG admin want to show something? Because he said, yes,
I did, and I'm asking nicely, how is it that at the ripe old age of 50 plus Copilot, I have decent, ask for nicely for things, and then that still isn't good enough?
Because you're supposed to be listening to me while I talk.
So, oh, God, it's been a long 20 weeks.
That's my Copilot success story that I've experienced in the last 2 weeks. So Jason, thank you for funneling down Copilot down my throat that I need to think about Copilot all the time because of all of this. Anyhow, that's my story, Jackie. Back to you in the studio.
Jack,
Trace, go for it.
I don't know if you did show this because I quickly got up to go pour myself some wine. Okay. But the Copilot prompt gallery, there's a lot of people that don't use the prompt gallery. Yeah. It's quite amazing. So have we showed it on the screen, or can I quickly show it?
No, go for it, please, Trace. We haven't showed it yet.
Screen. I've got so many screens. Yeah, I just got to look at what I'm looking at. There we go. And then I'll also just share the link. So it's quite simple to just miss it if you don't know. So there's the Copilot. I don't know why it's doing a stupid link, but anyway, there it is. So this is the Copilot prompts gallery, which is quite cool. So you can see the standard Copilot landing page in the background. And when you go to this, at the top there, you'll see that there's job type. So Annika, this might be a very cool thing for you as well. So there's job type. And there's the agent that you can specifically filter on, and there's the type of tasks. So I just want to zoom in a bit. So let's say, for example, I say, okay, HR. And then I go, okay, I want to look more at like learning type of things. Okay, and then it goes, okay, cool, let's look at it. Fostering like skill growth, okay, or encouraging benefit usage, or conduct market research. So if you go to, let's go back to executive. So let's say executive, and let's say help strategic plan for AI. So this is under executive. And if you then click on it, it then puts the prompt in for you. But But the nice thing about this is it's not about the prompt and the results it gives you. I always learn from seeing what other people do. And if you then go and you read that prompt, you go, that's a better way to say. So create a strategic action-orientated guide for managers, blah, 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 and then it puts this out. So that prompt gallery, that's a really stupid link. I don't know why it gave the link so stupid. Let me just get a better link, a better clean link. Here we go, copy link. There it is. That's definitely something I would share with end users and put that link everywhere, because I learned quite a lot from using that prompt gallery, because it helped me rephrase how I was speaking. Because if you think, especially if you're Afrikaans, you go like, give me a document that has fancy stuff in. I'm being such a cow. I sound like a District 9 actor. So not true. But it is. I mean, sometimes it's the same as like Googling. I mean, people don't always Google well. I mean, they don't ask the right questions. And for me, the prompt gallery was much more about actually helping me rethink the way that I ask the questions. So instead of just doing this, ask this and this. Or instead of doing that, ask that. There's a portal that I built last week for a customer. And I actually went and built a couple of pages around what makes a prompt really good. What is the things you should include? What's the thing? And not from a Microsoft and a technical point of view, more from I was going to say linguistic now, but you know what I mean? More from a grammar and a type of thing. So I think that there's a lot of learnings in there. So it's a very, very cool resource. I definitely, if there's anyone that wants to take a look at that, that's quite a nice resource. So I just wanted to share that, because it's so often that I didn't even know it existed. If I didn't go and search, works to be a consultant, if I didn't go and search for the content to build the portal for the client, I wouldn't have seen it. Just saying. Anyway, back over.
Thank you for sharing, Trace. I think this is really cool, and I think there's quite a few use cases like this exactly, where we've got a prompt gallery, we've got a marketplace. I don't even know if there's people who know that there are
yeah,
marketplaces. I want to see if I can get one up quick.
Don't encourage users to add more complexity to things.
Definitely not, but it's nice to know that if you're looking for something and somebody's already published something that is going to help you with your productivity, you can go look there first.
The answer is no.
Okay, I'll say no.
To who?
So
For your end users, Tracy, that, you just give everyone, Tracy walks into an organization and says nobody can create a team. And then when I talk about locking things down, right, which is not as aggressive, I get into trouble.
I lock teams down.
That's a good thing to do, though.
What's up with the files and shared button? Okay, people, honestly, I don't need shit like that happening to me while I'm busy training customers. No one needs that. Just saying.
Yeah, it just changed to confuse you.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to those slides, Jax?
Yep, I'm on my way. I was getting up my cute little library, but let me go back to the slides.
2 weeks with you guys. That should be an award. Every one of us should get a freaking badge.
I'm sure we can ask Copilot to do a naughty badge for us that we can put on LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm not going to go through these in too much detail, because I mean they are there for you to go through. I think it's more just for you to think about, what can be done. I think we've gone through quite a lot of content around the marketing space specifically, and I think this is still something, especially in the digital marketing space, there's still a lot of use for data analytics more than there is for AI at the moment, because I think something that makes marketing so interesting is that depending on how you do your marketing, you're actually sitting on a wealth of data that isn't actually used, in any way, shape, or form. So it's not being dashboarded, it's not being used to drive insights in many aspects. And once you can drive some decision making from the data that you have already collected, you can start to look at how you can improve productivity in the marketing space. So I think this is definitely one of the use cases where I've seen a little bit of maturity need to happen, but there are some things that you can already use Copilot for. I think there was a conference that we attended earlier this year, I think, Arbia, I don't know if you remember, but the use case was about how, it was the head of Google Africa, who had actually spoken about how their technology that they've now put out is actually at such a point where you can actually prompt a full video to be created. The challenge is, though, that if you're going to be doing that kind of thing in marketing, you're losing your personal touch with your audience. So there are pros and cons to actually implementing things like AI and the different kinds of generative AI you would have inside of organizations and specific industries like marketing. I don't know if you want to maybe add on some of the findings that you had there from that conference as well, Hobby. I know you spent a little bit of time on both sides.
No, I think I remember that, but I think the long and the short is never to lose your authenticity in the space. So what a lot of people are now doing, they deliberately make errors and mistakes to kind of come over as authentic. So I think the challenge is, how do we use all these AI and Copilot tools to almost, push authenticity and make sure that, you don't lose the trust of the customer. And even on that space, you can use technology to your advantage. So I think it's a fascinating discussion still.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hobby. Cool. So yeah, marketing, definitely something we can look at. Customer service, I think there's a wealth of knowledge that can be brought in here as well. Something that has been quite apparent, and I'm looking at the one I've actually got on my screen when I was going to show you my library. It's actually an IT support bot. So if you take your training manuals and you chuck that into SharePoint and you create a custom agent off of that, you can already start to create some custom support agents that can assist users in some way, shape, or form. Legal, this is becoming quite a big thing with actually being able to create use cases or repositories of mock trials, being able to put together precedents, those kinds of things. I think one of the hackathons that we had probably about 6 months ago, we had students actually build different solutions out, and one of them that came up was legal assistance to assist with mock trials and preparation for trials, which was actually quite interesting. Finance, again, there's a wealth of data in finance, so there really is a lot that you can do here. Being able to understand spend, being able to understand incomes, projections, things that I think traditionally were more used in the reporting, dashboarding side. I think you can actually have a lot of those data points at your fingertips now just by adding Copilot onto something like that. HR, I think this is one of the ones that scares me the most, because if you use this incorrectly, you have access to some very interesting data. We have had incidents before where, we had, for instance, a receptionist having access to the CEO's salary because, the correct data access wasn't applied through, something like SharePoint, and this is always a risk. So again, a lot that you can do here in terms of being able to understand, what documentation needs to be put together. There's a whole streamlined process that can be put forward. And I think this is a really good use case for being a little bit more agentic, where we have workflows and automations also built in. IT, I think this is probably something that we're seeing a lot of at the moment as well. There's a lot happening in the space. Again, on the support side, people trying to use this to try reduce time spent on, password resets and those kinds of things. Being able to kind of source that to an agent is something that a lot of organizations that I see are focusing on in the IT space. But again, this is one of those spaces where, there isn't a lot of ROI on actually being able to automate and improve productivity in this space. So definitely something that I think has a lot more potential if you combined it again with being able to look at different data principles and looking at workflows and automations. Al, I'm going to ignore this slide for a moment, and I'm going to give over to you with some of your cool use cases.
Yeah, I suppose.
Since I can't show my library.
Of course, you can show your library. All of these things are available from a scenario perspective. Microsoft has tweaked, and tweaked, right? It comes back to the age-old thing, and I said this to a customer today. The way you did business analysis back in 2003, where you hired a bunch of BAs from various companies and made a lot of money sending these people into your organization, to now start looking at workflows and forms, right, to automate a leave policy. You're going to do the same thing here. And then you're going to do the logical mapping to see if generative AI, right, and possibly agentic AI, because they're different things, right, declarative and the other one that Jace was talking about earlier on, can reduce the user's time to value. And you're going to have to run through that. There's no quick, easy, give everyone Gen AI and it's going to make them be faster, quicker, better, right? Like Steve Austin, the $6 million man, right? Man van Staal. It's not going to be that, right? We can rebuild them. Copilot's not going to rebuild you. You're going to need to understand the use case and It might not be the silver bullet that you're hoping with Copilot, or at least agents or generative AI or agentic AI is actually going to solve everything in you. People are still going to have to do things the way they do these things. And we can move past this, Jax.
Okay, well then you
I
can
think we're
go to
good.
your big announcement.
Our big announcement. We've spoken to Mr. Molman and the production team for season 1 of Copilot Zero to Hero, and we've been informed as of this morning that we've got the rights to announce that we will be back for season 2 of Copilot Zero to Hero, now with added agents, and there will be an official launch hackathon on the 28th of January. And Jason's going to see if he can book the venue for us at Microsoft in Johannesburg. I don't know which one I am on this picture. I know which one Warren is, and
It's
I
the
don't know.
glasses. How did the glasses not give it away? I put so much effort into your character.
Funnily enough, when you see me on Friday, I'll be wearing a very similar shirt. I'm
There we
just
go.
putting it out there.
And you've got
channeled
similar
my
pants
inner
on too.
shirt. So we will be having a Copilot agent hackathon on the 28th of January, 2026, at hopefully the Microsoft head office. We'll make the announcements probably later next week. It's the day before Ignite the Tour Johannesburg. And we'll be taking 120 people through the door because we're going to expect it to break up into groups of 10 each. And I think we can only fit 12 round tables in there. The morning will be filled with a keynote, some stuff, and then we're going to encourage teams to go off and build agents. There'll be some prizes at the end. We will have an adjudication board, a bunch of judges that's going to review the agents that you've built. This is actually part of, I think, season 3 of Agentic AI run by Microsoft in multiple countries across the globe. We did one sometime this year. I can't remember when we did it, but we will be having an official hackathon at Microsoft Johannesburg if Jason can secure the venue on the 28th of Jan. We'll obviously promote this. And that's going to kick off Copilot Zero to Hero Season 2, The Age of Agents. So we're very excited to do that beginning of Jan. And then it will run as all the other ones have run every 2 weeks on a Tuesday. What's today? Tuesday. On a Tuesday at 5:30. And we are wanting to help you now that if you've watched all the videos, filled in all the homework, downloaded all the slide decks from the GitHub repo, we are hoping that that will give you an opportunity to start looking at how we do the wine. Yes, there's always wine. So hopefully we'll be able to help you starting to move from no code to low code in this crazy world that we call Microsoft Copilot. And that's a wrap, people. Wow. On time as well.